Attention members, we're now being webcast. Thank you. Right. Good evening, members. Welcome to Heritage, Culture and Leisure Committee, January 31st, 2017. So I'll immediately wish you all a Happy New Year because we haven't met up until now. So thank you very much for attending. Before we get to the agenda, may I just take this opportunity to advise you that we are not expecting the fire alarm to sound tonight. So if it does, please remain seated. And Mrs. Matthews, and she's not here, Poppy Collier will assess the situation and give further instructions on the evacuation of the building if appropriate. As I say, tonight's webcast will be, proceedings will be webcast by the Council, but if anyone is intending recording these proceedings, can you please let me know now? I ask this question not to stop you, but merely to ensure that members and other members of the public in the room know this is taking place. Chairman's announcements. I hate talking about health and safety, but personally I just wanted to let you know that unfortunately I had a severe hemorrhage in the left eye recently, which has blurred my vision until some work can be done. So please be gentle on me if I go to the wrong agenda item or go off piste, as they say. Apart from that, two items of good news. I had the good fortune this morning to go to Moat Park and was invited to open the new dementia-friendly walk, and that's superb, and a lot of people turned up. We had good press coverage, and the dementia team turned up, and I did have a short walk. It was very good. The weather wasn't too bad, but it's a recommended walk, and there's new installations in the park to guide people round, so that was very worthwhile, and it's a good plus for the park. Some of you may have noticed, and it was circulated, that the Carriage Museum featured on Antiques Road Trip, for those who watch these sort of things. So it was filmed last May, apparently, but it's only just come onto television. Obviously, it will do the rounds, but it showed our Carriage Museum in a fantastic light. It was a very good programme, and so if you get a chance to have a look if you haven't already. Again, it will encourage visitors to come to us in the summer, because as you know, the Carriage Museum is not open in the winter. But there's been lots of inquiries already, you know, where, what, how can we come? So it's done us a lot of good publicity. Apologies for absence. Apologies from Councillor Hinder and Councillor Mrs. Wilson. Substitute members. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Matt Burton, subbing for Councillor Mrs. Hinder.
Thanks very much. Councillor Daly.
For Mrs. Wilson.
Thank you very much. There are no urgent items, but we do have an update for item 13, the River Festival item, which is a survey undertaken in 2010, which I think you should hopefully have with you on your desks, members. Do we have any visiting members? Councillor Perry, would you like to come forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. For agenda item 13, I have a particular interest in, and I'll reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Perry. Always good to see you. There are no disclosures by members or officers. Oh, sorry.
I didn't last the meeting to the end. I was asked to leave by you at one stage, and then you rescinded that but said I could only observe and not speak. I need to let my wife know what time I'm coming home tonight to cook my dinner. Are you going to spring a surprise on me and tell me that I've got some special interest of which I have no knowledge or at all? You may know what it is, but I don't know. But
interest
just in case...
Not for the chairman. It's your decision.
I don't know, really. I'm left in Biwood. Perhaps my colleague, who's always in the same situation, can help me.
Thank you, Councillor Revel. I think
Pecuniary interest, it's not a financial one, it's just this sort of catch-all, what the hell is it all about? I'm surprised you can't give me an explanation.
no, I think we're going to take every case on its merits. So,
Yeah, on that particular issue, I did ask on the night, as I do live in the vicinity on an approach road, if I had anything I should be declaring, obviously, because it seems like if you live close by or you're in the vicinity of somewhere, it could affect your decisions as a councillor. And that's what I was a bit concerned about on the night, and I never had anything answered on that one.
thank you, Councillor Nagy. I was aware of that. Can I refer to Kate Turner, our legal representative, to give us an update?
I discussed it earlier with the monitoring officer for Maidstone, and it was decided that actually, because you don't live directly in the park, then it was fine for you to be present for it. It's because Councillor Revel lives in Moat Park that the decision was made. Okay.
Thank you very much.
I mean, I can't let that go. You live closer. I live quite a long way away, in fact, from the event that happened. In fact, probably quite a few thousand people in Maidstone live much closer to the actual event than I do. So, and if I was in the park, what on earth does that make any difference? I'm still a resident of Maidstone. I'm a representative for Bearsted. I've been voted in democratically to speak for the residents of Bearsted. You must have a better reason than that to stop me speaking. I was voted in. You weren't voted in. I was voted in. So the people of Bearsted had nobody to represent them on that night. And that was absolutely wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And I think you ought to apologise for it.
Thank you, Councillor Revel. Can I ask, please, that you take that with legal on a separate occasion so you can bottom out what you want to achieve. It is not for tonight to be able to talk about the past programme, and obviously each issue comes up separately.
Last thing, I would be very happy to have a discussion with the legal department to find out exactly what it is they're getting at, because I can see no reason why I was gagged on that night. It was absolutely out of order.
That's fine. I would ask you to refer to Estelle Culligan because she is the monitoring officer for Maidstone, and it's her that... Pardon?
Thank you, Councillor Revel. Thank you for that. Can we move on? Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of lobbying? Item 7, minutes of the meeting held on the 1st of November 2016. We'll do as we normally do and go through page by page. Page 1. Page 2. Page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, I remember it was a long meeting, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, and last but not least, page 11. Our members agreed that the minutes can be approved as a correct record and signed. Agree? Thank you, members. Item 8, petitions. We were expecting a petition tonight, but it has been removed from the agenda to be considered at a future meeting. I have no questions or statements tonight, members. We're going to have a change of order of items. I propose to take item 16, the medium-term financial strategy, fees and charges, after item 11, which is the work programme. Is that agreed, members? Yeah, thank you very much. Items to be taken in private. There are no yellow pages, members, tonight. You're pleased to know. We turn to item 11, the committee work programme. Committee work programme, just highlighting, I've been advised that the Maidstone Museum's capital programme and 20-year plan item will come to the March meeting of the committee. This will be for information only and differs in content by the Maidstone Museum's Sustainability Options Paper, which will be presented in April. Is that clear, members? Okay, members, moving on, we'll go to page, of item 16 on page 46. And Mark Green, our Financial Director, will be presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are a wide range of services that the Council charges for. Some of these charges are for us to set, some are set by the Government. And each year you're asked to review these fees and charges and consider officers' proposals for any changes. And details of the charges relating to this committee are summarised on page 49 of the papers in front of you, in the table at the top of that page. You'll see that the main area of increases that we're proposing for next year is around the crematorium. And the details are set out on pages 55 to 56 of the report. You'll see there all the individual changes that are proposed in the charges. You'll see that some of the increases are above and beyond the rate of inflation, but the nature of fee increases is that sometimes we have to make a round sum increase to come up with a sensible number. And in setting the fees and charges, members, I'm sure, know that we have to pay attention to things like the cost of the raw materials, the cost of the supplies we're bringing in, and the market rate for the service. And on the income from the crematorium specifically, that does play an important part in balancing our budget. We have an item later on in the agenda about our budget proposals, and you'll see from that that the 55,000 extra income that we're projecting from the crematorium is taken into account in our budget proposals. Now, Jen Shepherd and Sharon Smith, Bereavement Services Manager, are here this evening, and they can take any questions you may have specifically on the cemetery and crematorium charges. And there are also charges in here relating to the museum and the parks. So, over to you, members, to ask any questions that you may have on the proposals for changes in fees and charges. Thank you.
Councillor Ells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Concerning the museum charges, I noticed in a completely separate part of the agenda we're talking about schools cutting back on visits to the museums or the hours they spend at the museum. And yet we've got some quite large increases in the charges to school visits to the museum. And I just wondered why that is. It seems a little bit, it'll put them off even more. I understand that we need to raise the money. The other thing is also with the museum, hire of the glass room has gone down by £10, and I wondered why that was actually a negative figure. And I think if I can pile in all three questions, if that's all right. I also just wondered why bowls was the only sport that has increased? Well, we've got something against bowls. Thank you.
Do you play bowls, Councillor Ells? Can I ask Victoria from the museum to reply to you on this one?
Not the bowls, unfortunately. The school charges were raised in line with, excuse me, were raised in line with charges that we'd done a bit of benchmarking around other organisations for. We've done quite a lot of research with schools as well, and although the pattern of their visitation is changing, the amounts that they're prepared to pay for one session seems to be in line with the new charge rather than the old. We'll obviously review that as we go along. The measure with the classroom, we actually realigned the way that we're offering the 2 rooms that we have for rent. So the classroom, which is the smaller of the 2 rooms, has been reduced slightly to try and encourage more short-term use by smaller groups. And we introduced a lower charity rate as well to try and encourage more use by community groups or people who don't need a room for the whole day, which is what tends to be in the library.
Yeah, thank you for that. I thought there must be a reason underlining that somewhere, so that's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Do we have any more?
Yes, on your final point, Councillor Ells, about bowls, looking at the charges, what appears to have happened is that there's really just a rationalisation of the charges, so that what you've got is a current charge, for example, of £77.30, which has been rounded up to £80, so it's not a very significant increase. I'll find out from the relevant officer if there's any more information and circulate that to members, but I suspect that that's all it is, just a rationalisation of the charges.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more questions, members? Councillor Nagy.
Thank you, Chairman. Mooring fees. Do we actually collect mooring fees? That's my first question.
I'm not familiar with the detail of that service. I'll have to come back to you and let you know whether we collect anything for mooring fees.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's just I've never known us collect mooring fees, and when I saw that in there, I thought there must be a reason why it's in there. And my second one was, I can't. We obviously got the town square out there. What heading does that come under when we rent it out?
Is the question in relation to what committee would consider charges for the town square?
We rent it out in the course of the year to different people that use it, like Moat Park and various other things. I was just wondering what heading it comes under in here, out there.
The charge in relation to that, if there is a charge, and I'm not sure whether there will be, and what the details of any charging arrangements are, it wouldn't necessarily be within the scope of this committee, so I suspect that that's the reason it's not shown here. There are charges considered by all the committees, and something in relation to the streets in Maidstone is probably more likely to come within communities, housing and environment. I'll just check with Jen Shepherd to find out if she's got any more information on this. No, so I'm sorry, we can't help you any more on that, but I'll find out where it does get charged and get back to you.
Do we have any more questions, members? In that case, from the Chair, I'm going to propose that we take the recommendation that the committee approves the proposed fees and charges for 2017-18 as set out in the detail in Appendix A. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Ells? Thank you. Did you want to speak, or you? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Right, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Councillor Stockley, have you voted? On that basis, members, we'll take that vote again. Can I ask all those in favour?
That's unanimous.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, members. We'll now move back to item 12. Referral from Policy and Resources Committee, land at Gore Court Road. I think we've heard this name before. Page 13 on the agenda. And Mark Green will be presenting again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members will probably recall that this land at Gore Court Road was declared surplus to requirements after a decision at this committee was referred on to Policy and Resources Committee. And Policy and Resources Committee subsequently decided to dispose of the land. And in doing so, they also agreed that a replacement hedgerow would be planted alongside the road, and a covenant would be agreed with the developer of the land opposite to that effect, such that the developer would pay for the replanting of the hedge. And I understand that discussions have taken place now with Kent Wildlife Trust, who would be paid by the developer to plant the hedge. But the very specific item that is for consideration by this committee is that when Policy and Resources considered the matter at their meeting in December, they felt it would be beneficial to plant a semi-natural buffer alongside the hedge in Seneca Recreation Ground. And so if we look at paragraph 1.4, it sets out what specifically Policy and Resources considered, that it would be beneficial to protect wildlife with this semi-natural buffer. And you're being asked in the recommendation here to agree that that is the right thing to do, comes within the scope of this committee, given your responsibility for parks and open spaces. So you're simply asked to agree that that approach be taken to the layout of the hedge and the buffer alongside it in Seneca Recreation Ground. Thank you.
Councillor Nagy, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I actually ask who will be paying for the natural buffer?
The only work that will actually need any one-off payment for is the hedgerow, and as I said, the developer's paying that. The buffer will be grass that is allowed to grow to become more like a wildflower meadow. So it's not as though there will be any significant costs associated with that. The regular costs of maintaining a recreation ground are all part of the Parks and Open Spaces budget.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chairman. While we're on the subject of the cost of this process and of this decision, I'd like to raise a point publicly. I do think that the decision that's been put in front of us here tonight is relatively straightforward, but I've followed this for the 3 months that this decision has been rambling on for, and I think herein lies an example of the failings and inefficiencies of a committee system of governance. Bear with me here. I do think it's important to address this publicly and for members to be thinking about this, because this is a decision that should have been taken either to declare a piece of land surplus to requirements to allow for a development or not, and to find it useful. This has taken 3 months. It's now at its 3rd committee meeting, and it still has to go before planning committee at a later stage as well, even if we agree this tonight. Just something to consider when we're thinking about the costs of this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Burton, for that update, and that was an interesting statement. Thank you. Councillor Revel.
There is actually a cost involved in a semi-natural buffer, because if you leave it to nature, it doesn't come up semi-natural. And normally these things are planted, especially to have the plants in that you would want to be wild, and not the ones you don't want to be wild, like dandelions and other obnoxious weeds. So I don't think that would come without a cost, and I think, I don't want to change the recommendation, but I think we should keep in mind a semi-natural buffer is more expensive than just growing grass seed, as indeed is a replacement native hedgerow. Because the interesting thing with native hedgerows, they do need more than one planting. I mean, the hawthorn is the one that is planted most of all because it keeps livestock in. But in fact, you can date hedges by the species you've got in the hedge, and it equates roughly to one species per 100 years will tell you how old a hedge is. So I think a replacement native hedgerow is more difficult to plant than to write. So I think that needs to be... I don't know who is in fact doing this and how they're going to work this out. But you're quite right. It's gone on too long, so I make the comment, no more.
In response to the question about the hedge, as I said when introducing the item, all of the one-off costs, planting the hedge and so on, will be undertaken by the Kent Wildlife Trust, and the developer will be paying them for their work in doing that. So, to repeat, there is no cost to the council. I understand you're correct that it's not just a question of planting one species. They'll be planting a number of different species to make up the type of hedge that is envisaged.
Does that help you, Councillor Revel? Yeah. That's fine. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Councillor Daly.
Quite simply, Chairman, I would like to hear anybody speak against this and have good reasons for refusing it. First of all, it's beneficial to the wildlife, it says so, and it can only benefit rather than disbenefit. So I don't know why we're spending any more time on this, however much it costs.
Thank you very much, Councillor Daly. Yes, I'm going to draw this to a close if we have no more speakers. I'd like to get Gorgle Road sorted, and thank you, Councillor Burton, for your input on that. I'm going to propose, I'd like to move that the relevant officer be delegated to implement a semi-natural buffer within the Seneca Recreation Ground, bounding the new hedgerow to increase its value for wildlife and long-term protection. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Daly? Thank you. Take a vote on that, members. All those in favour? That's again unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving swiftly on, we have a verbal report of the member of East Ward for the River Festival. As I say, Councillor Nagy requested that a survey dated 2010 should be being circulated to members by email. I trust you've all received this, and a hard copy is also available and has been tabled for your reference. I would just like to remind members that as per Part 3.1, Section 3.2 of the Constitution, we are not making a decision on the River Festival itself this evening, but are asked to decide whether we would like to take the matter further and request an officer report on the item to a future meeting. Councillor Nagy, would you like to?
Thank you, Chairman. Just a bit of history on this to start with. Obviously, I've been connected to the River Festival quite a few years, and just before Christmas, well, I arranged a meeting with Mr Green and Dave Knight, who used to be the chairman for many years of the River Festival, because there is a lot of support in the town, and businesses and things like that would like to see the River Festival back. And this is why I made the arrangements to go and see Mr Green, because obviously you need the backing or the goodwill of Maidstone Borough Council for this event to take place. As with all the events, as with the Rambling Man, etc. And at the outcome of that meeting, it was suggested that it be put on the agenda tonight for this committee to vote on whether we should have that backing or not. And to me, I would like to see that. I mean, various things. We're not asking for money. I'm asking for things like the safety advisory group that we have to have, that has to be part of the council. Things like the cleaning up afterwards, there's always a lot of debris afterwards to be done and things like that. And that's the sort of thing that you need the council's intake, and most of it is on council land or in the public domain. So very important to have a safety advisory group, which we've all had over the years, and there's a history of that, and a very successful event's been run for many years. And that's the reason why I want to try and bring it back, and I want to bring it back, and I'd like to put it on, and I would like to have the goodwill of the council. So there is talk about, obviously the Rambling Man is on the same weekend this year, but 2 years ago we had the Mellor on and the Social in Moat Park, exactly the same sort of thing. 2 events were run at the same time. So I'm sure Maidstone Borough Council, if they coped with that, could cope with these 2 events. The Rambling Man is in a confined area in Moat Park. It's all ticketed and a very controlled event, very well-run event. And the 2 events can coexist, because people won't be going to the Rambling Man and popping out down to the river for different things. They will be in the Rambling Man all the time that Rambling Man's open, they'll be there. And this is really for the people of Maidstone, for something else to do in that weekend. And it's always been that weekend. Can't move it because it's got a historical thing when all the boats come up at that weekend. And as most people who have lived in Maidstone for many years will know, we've had a very successful weekends. Most mayors who've come in the past will be able to vouch for that. And it's just this goodwill, or whatever you call it, from the council. As with the Rambling Man, that couldn't exist without the goodwill of the council. The Mellor, all the other events. And I am going to bring it back. And I'm hoping tonight that us as a committee, I won't vote on it if need be. I'll just abstain. But the main thing is to have the goodwill of the council, and that is just the officers' time. Now, there won't be a lot of time in this. There is a unique thing about the River Festival. In all licences, there is an exception, as was the Carnival many years ago. The River Festival itself has an exception in the licences already, so it's got an historical thing. We have certain bits of the town which only the River Festival, so we can raise money. We always raise money for charities in Maidstone. It's what I call a proper Maidstone event put on by a group of volunteers for the benefit of the people of Maidstone. And I think this is the sort of event we should have in Maidstone. And businesses would like to see it. I've already had people going to help me sponsor it in one way or another, and that's what I'm putting here tonight. Obviously, I was hoping to get that done before Christmas, but I think if the members can back this event, if it's not successful, I won't run it again. But this River Festival needs to come back, I feel. And it's for the benefit of the people of Maidstone. And I was hoping tonight that members will give us the backing for that and make a wise decision. Thank you very much, members.
Thank you, Councillor Nagy. Councillor Perry, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Good evening, members. Like Councillor Nagy, I can't vote, but what I would say is this. I strongly support everything he has said, actually, because I think this is a very important matter, actually, for the town and the borough as a whole. The river is like Moat Park. It's one of the jewels in our crown, actually, and we should maximise the river. And I think this festival has in the past brought business to the town. It has a strong economic arguments for it. It is something that promotes the town very strongly, promotes the borough as well, and I think it's a very important festival, actually. And I'm saddened that it hasn't taken place more frequently, because I think actually this is a very good idea. And I hate to use this word, I've used it too many times, I think, but I think it's a win-win situation for the borough, for everybody, for the people who live in this borough as well. And so I would just like to give my support. As I said, I think it makes a major economic contribution. If you want to be hard-nosed about it, it does. And you can see it from the figures and from the visitor footfall that comes through. And it brings a lot of pleasure to people as well. And I think that's very, very important. So I would like to just support what Councillor Nagy has said, and I would hope that this committee can recommend to take it forward, because I think it's a very, very good idea. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Ells, I think, was first.
Thank you, Chairman. I definitely support bringing some form of river festival back to Maidstone. Councillor Nagy actually forgot to mention the survey that he wanted us all to have. But it does show it brings a lot of trade, I believe, to the town. I think some of the problem with the river festival as it became is it outgrew its original format. It ceased to be on the river. In fact, the last few years there was virtually nothing on the river. It was music event, it was fireworks, it was bars. The early days of the river festival was on the river. There was dragon boat racing, raft racing, canoe racing, and I think that's where we should perhaps be looking to start, actually put it back onto the river. The illuminated boat parade was always very good. I just wondered, River Festival, this last few years, it's picked up some fairly bad connotations, whether we could actually rebrand the whole thing, put it back on the river, call it a Maidstone Regatta, and start off with your raft races and that form, actually using the river itself, which got very neglected in the last few years of the River Festival. But I would certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ells. Councillor Ford.
Can you just explain why you have to have it on that weekend? Because I think it would be better if it was on a different weekend to Rambling Man, because then you'd end up doubling, you know, you've got two lots of income coming in.
Yes, Rambling Man wasn't on that weekend last year. It was the weekend before. And it's a historical thing. It's been more than 30 years. It's always been that weekend they come up. Always. It's the boat owners come up, and they've always come up. And obviously Rambling Man's come along. Last year now, yes, it was on a different weekend. But now they've moved it another weekend. But I've given that a lot of thought. And I think the two can exist, because it is up in Moat Park. And Rambling Man people pay a lot of money to be there. Because of the people that come to Maidstone, and I really love the Rambling Man. I think it's good for Maidstone, you know, obviously the sound issues, but I think it puts Maidstone on the map. We have big bands coming, but not everyone can afford to go to that. And as the boats are going to be here, I mean, you must have seen the boats come up in the last couple of years when they've come up anyway, because that's what they've always done. And it would just be nice to get something back in the town for, I don't like to say normal people, but people who just can't afford to go to anything else. It's something that's always been free to the public, and it's always been run mainly by businesses. They support it. The businesses of Maidstone support it, and it's for the public of Maidstone. And I think that's what makes it a bit unique myself. That's why I'm very keen for it.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Chairman. I support the vast majority of what's been said here, but I think we are a little bit in danger of actually trying to create the vision for the future of the River Festival here. My understanding was that we're just deciding on whether or not this comes back as a further report at some point. So I can't see any recommendations in front of me, but how do we progress with this?
As we said on the papers here, we were asked to decide. We can't make a decision on whether tonight. We would obviously just forward it to officers for a report and bring it back into further meeting.
Then let's do so.
Councillor Ford.
If it's going to come back to another meeting, aren't we delaying things? I know you can't do anything tonight, but if it's going to be a viable festival, you need to start planning it fairly quickly, I would have thought.
Can I ask Councillor Nagy what time frame you were looking for?
Yeah, if as a member of the committee, or if I can't do it, I would like someone or myself to propose tonight, and if we get a seconder, that this committee votes for it for tonight, that it does have the backing of Maidstone Borough Council in the way I've described. There's no money involved. It's just that we need the safety advisory group and that cleaning of the Maidstone, by Maidstone Borough Council. And if I can get that sponsored, I will. But I'd like to have it tonight that this committee decides that the goodwill is there, and I'd like to propose that if I can, or get a member to propose that for me in seconding.
Thank you, Councillor Nagy. Can we just confirm the wording of your proposal, Councillor Nagy?
Yes, I'd like members tonight to vote for Maidstone Borough Council. I think the word is facilitate the River Festival Committee as an example. There's the safety advisory groups and the cleaning of after the event, which I'm hoping to get sponsored. I think if those two things could be covered, and officer goodwill, I think that's what I'd like to see, if that's wording is correct.
I've been advised you can only ask for an officer report, but I'll pass you over to Mike Green to give you some more details.
Thank you. Just a bit of context on this for members. Officers have considered a festival and event strategy for the next few years, and one of the key principles that has been adopted is that any events like this have to be self-financing. And I know, although Dawn Hurd, the Reverend Head of Service, isn't here this evening, I've spoken to her about it, and consideration was given to whether the River Festival should be part of the programme. And there are a number of concerns about it. The fact that it this year would take place the same weekend as Ramblin' Man is one. Another is about the organisational infrastructure, as it were, in that if there isn't a strong setup for organising it with a committee and people who are prepared to do all the work, then it would fall on Maidstone Council to do that sort of work. And clearly there'd be quite a big resource requirement there at a time when we're looking after Ramblin' Man. That would be quite difficult to manage. So that was the reason that it wasn't in the programme that had been developed already. And so certainly members can request an officer report for that to be reconsidered. If you vote to do that this evening, then we can take it back and do a report. I suspect that given the things I've said, the officer report will be saying that it's not something that we could do within the available resources, but certainly we can come back and if that's the intention of the meeting this evening, with a report next time on what will be involved in taking your proposals forward.
Can I come back on that? If that is the strategy, then are you saying that in the next 2 years, then, if anyone comes along with a new event, you can't facilitate them at all? Because obviously we wouldn't have had the Ramblin' Man if that was the plan, if that was the sort of strategy. Because when that came along, if we had that strategy, then we wouldn't have Ramblin' Man. So, but I think what I want tonight from the committee is no more reports. I think we've had enough of them. Obviously, Steve Goulet's survey in 2010, that's why that came up, because we had this argument from officers that, you know, was it worth doing the River Festival, blah-de-blah, and that's why it was instigated that Steve Goulet did it at the time, and that's why this survey was produced back then. So all I'm hearing really is the usual things, But it's for the members to decide, I think, tonight, if the goodwill of the council and the officers is to be decided upon. And that is what you suggested before Christmas, that we needed to come to this committee for members to make that decision. And I'm only asking for the safety advisory group and obviously the cleaning up after, which normally takes place anyway. And there is a committee, there is quite a big committee, and I think that I wouldn't be doing it if I think I was going to waste people's times. But I know the goodwill's there, and I know this can happen. But obviously, we need a safety advisory group meeting, and that's one of the most important things for this event to take place. So I'm hoping tonight that it's not just another report, but actually members make a decision tonight to back it with the help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nagy. Councillor Burton, you wanted to speak, and then we have Councillor Revel after that.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think it is just another report that we're asking for here. I think we've all expressed sentiments around this room that says that we individually and personally support the River Festival as an idea, as a festival, as something that the people of Maidstone can share in. What we don't want to get into here is committing resources of this council to something that many of us don't know the wider ramifications of that resource strain for. Now, a report may well come to us in the near future that says, fantastic, we think we can go ahead with it the following year. But in an era where we're actually being expected to be slightly more stringent and tighten the belt with the resources of the public purse, I think it would be foolhardy of us to actually just say, well, yeah, okay, we're going to actually put this on without any thought. So I'd actually like to propose an amendment to the motion such that the motion reads that this committee would like to receive a further report into the possibility of the return of the River Festival. Thank you.
Thank you,
That would be a separate proposal. That wouldn't be an amendment.
Councillor Revel, did you want to come in before we try to come to a conclusion?
Yes, I would, because I'd like to back up what has just been said. I think we're all in favour of the River Festival, but we have been given a very clear warning by one of our officers. I mean, I don't always agree with the officers, but in finance I do tend to listen to them, and it's important. There was a red flag put up there as to how much the taxpayers of Maidstone would be involved in paying towards the River Festival, and I think Councillor Nagy was very not clear, but he thought that it would be self-financing, he hoped. But it is expensive to clear up rubbish at a weekend. It's not the best time for council workers to be working. They want to be paid for it, an honest wage for an honest Saturday or Sunday's work. And I wouldn't like to commit this committee without knowing or having a reasonable understanding of what the financial outcome would be as far as Maidstone Council is concerned. It would be wrong of us to do that, I'm sure you would agree. I think we need to know what the structure of the organisation would be, and then certainly I'd accept assurances from Councillor Nagy that that it's a strong structure to carry this through and has got the financial nous to do it as well. Because often people are very enthusiastic to do things and then suddenly you find they've never costed it or they've costed it badly and they're always coming with an open hand. And those days, I think, have gone. We've got to be much more careful.
Thank you, Councillor Revel. Councillor Daly.
Well, Chairman, I can remember the river festivals of yesteryear quite vividly. They were always colourful and happy days and when it sun shone. The boat owners came in their hundreds, literally hundreds. And even when it ceased to be, they still came. they came anyway, but it wasn't structured. And the problem that faces any council is that all progress tends to be worse, it seems to me, because what we used to have, and we used to have in abundance, we do not have any more. We can't afford this, we can't do that, and that's sad. I know that's sad. And I think that a great deal has been promised, and I believe it's been promised through on the back of Rambling Man and the people associated with that. I do recognise the downside, if you like, of any of these big events, public events like public liability insurance and things like that, and safety, for example, on the river. Our river actually is a canal, as you probably realise, but it's a very dangerous canal. And a lot of people go in and don't come out. Well, certainly not alive anyway, over the years. So when we had the raft race, it was good fun, but everybody had to be very, very careful and keep an eye on things going on. So yes, it's fun, and it's a fun day. And I would like to see it back, and I would like to see it supported. And I would like to see that in some way we can get some guarantees that the cost, Mr. Nagy is telling us that there's no cost implication here. We know that there is always a clear-up. But anyway, we've got litter wardens now, £75 for everything we drop. So, I mean, there's a very good value here, possibly to pay for everything forever. But still, no, let's get back to square one. I think it's a free event, generally speaking. It is colourful. It is an uplift in the public psyche. People liked it, people enjoyed it, and people really would like to see it back. So I don't want to keep on this once upon a time theme that we used to have this and used to have that. I would like to see us support this. I would like to see Mr. Nagy be able to go away and start to bring it forward and bring it happen. If it goes flat or goes wrong, then well, you could scalp him if there was anything to scalp, but on the other hand, it would have to be properly and rigidly, I think, controlled somehow. There is always a safety aspect these days, and we know jolly well that where thousands of people are gathered together, sometimes people take advantage of that. But in the past, during these weekends, there was very little police activity in the sense of arrests or bad behaviour. There was scruff from time to time, but that was controlled. But the police aspect of this is expensive, and I have to say, they don't do it for nothing anymore, although we pay the taxes for them, and that we would hope that they would do public order, but they don't. So that is something to watch. But I do hope that we can give support for this. On this occasion, it's a very good survey, reads very well, and I think a lot of work has gone into this. So we ought to support it. I haven't seen actually anything in writing, the proposition, but it's an oral report, so presumably we will be told before we put our hands up or down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Daly, and I thank you all for your contribution on this. It is obviously a very emotive subject for the town, and we need to decide. I'm going to go now to Councillor Nagy's original proposal, which Poppy will read out for us.
Councillor Nagy, correct me if I haven't got this done correctly. It was proposed to vote for Maidstone Borough Council to facilitate the River Festival Committee and its links to the Safety Advisory Group and cleaning after the event. Does that capture? Yes, Councillor Nagy proposed that the committee vote in favour of Maidstone Borough Council facilitating the River Festival Committee and links to the Safety Advisory Group and cleaning up after the event.
Do you have a seconder for that, Councillor Nagy? Yes. Councillor Daly. Councillor Daly, thank you very much. Can we have a vote on that? Oh, yeah. We do this. We vote on this first. Yeah. Yeah. Vote on this proposal first, members. Can I have 4 proposal?
1, 2, 3, 4, 4 in favour.
Those against?
1 against.
And abstentions?
Oh, Councillor Ford. Change of. Yeah.
You're abstaining.
4 abstain. Okay.
Yes, Councillor Naga, we understand you didn't vote. Are you in favour of your own motion, proposal?
I will abstain, Chairman, because I've got an interest, haven't I? Can I just ask clarification on that? Obviously, I've proposed it, and if I voted for it, that would be an interest, wouldn't it? Well, if the legal advice is I can vote for it, I will vote for it.
Just to make it clear, members, we're going to redo that vote, just to make it very crystal clear. So can I have all those in favour of Councillor Naga's proposal?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favour. Yep.
Those against?
Sorry, Chairman. Point of order, if I may. I might have misunderstood this or got this wrong in my mind, but if somebody proposes a motion, do you not take... sorry, if someone proposes an amendment, do you not take that amendment first and then have a substantive?
Yeah. What you proposed wasn't an amendment, it was substantially different. That's fine. Yeah.
Or in
Sorry,
favour?
5 in favour.
5 in favour. Those against? Abstentions? 4.
4 abstentions.
Thank you, members. That's carried. And we go to Councillor Burton's proposal. Or not? Okay. Thank you, Councillor Burton. We can take your proposal now. Would you like us to read it out?
That the committee requests a report on the implications of allocating resources to the facilitation of the River Festival to a future meeting.
Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Fort.
Sorry, can I just have some clarity? I'm not sure whether I might even be minded to withdraw this completely, because surely we've just actually promised resources for this anyway. So we're pre-concluding the report, and I don't want to waste further resources in putting it together, so I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Councillor Burton. That makes eminent sense. Thank you very much. So we got anything? Members, I suggest at this point, before we get to the next item, we have a quick short break, because the next item will take all our brain power. Thank you. Five minutes maximum. Thank you.